So today we're going to talk about what is a plant. Our class rules for all things farm. We're going to be respectful of one another. We're going to speak one person at a time, not interrupting each other. We're going to keep ourselves on mute if we're in a noisy place. We got background noise. And we're going to try to keep our video on even if we're not on the screen, so we know that you're there. Announcements. More seeds have been started this week. Me and our new job coach Elizabeth planted a lot of seeds on Friday before the long weekend. So we have some kale seedlings going now. I started some green onions. We have some peppers going, and even a few tomatoes for very, very, very early tomatoes that are going to stay in the greenhouse their whole life. So it's still pretty early for tomatoes, Blake, but mine are going to stay in the greenhouse where it's nice and warm. Our BCS tractor for building our new garden beds will be shipping out soon. And our first plantings in the field will be happening in March for those things that can survive a few little frosts. So today is the first in a series of lessons called Plantapalooza. If you guys remember, we did Plantapalooza last year. I think Danny started it before I even started working at the farm. So we're gonna start Plantapalooza back up again. And first, we're gonna start off very, very basic with what is a plant? All right, for our icebreaker question, let's each name a different part of a plant. So think about all the different body parts that plants have, and I'll call on people and we will say some plant parts.
Flower.
Thank you, Michael. Flower is one. Miss Anna and Eva, how about one more plant part that's on this page? I have an example of a picture.
Root.
That's right. Okay, so far we have leaf, stem, flower, and root. Good job, everybody. Good input.
And watch a computer.
Okay, so let's talk about why plants are important. Plants give us oxygen to breathe, so we couldn't breathe without plants making oxygen for us. They give us food to eat. So if you think about food that comes from plants, you might think of like oats and wheat and tomatoes and bananas and watermelons. Lots and lots and lots of our food comes from plants. Clothes to wear. If you have any clothes that are made of cotton, cotton comes from plants. So plants even give us clothes to wear. So who can think of a building material that comes from plants? What do you build a house out of that comes from plants?
About wood.
Wood. That's right. Wood comes from trees. Trees are plants, and we build our houses with wood. Okay, so now it gets a little more complicated. Water filtration. So plants out in the wild, you know, so say we have a hillside and we have plants and we have dirty water running down that hill. Those plants are going to catch some of that dirty water and keep it from running into our streams and our groundwater. So plants filter our water for us and help keep our water clean. And they do erosion control. Who can remember what erosion is? Pop quiz, see if you guys remember from last year. What is erosion? Erosion is when soil washes away or blows away. So for example, let's think of that same hill that I was just talking about. If that hill didn't have any plants on it and a big flood of rain came, it would wash away all that soil into the streams. But if we have plants, those plants hold the soil down with their roots and slow the water down with their leaves. So plants help with erosion control. They keep our soil from washing away. And so much more I couldn't possibly put on this slideshow, all the ways that plants are important. There's just too many. Without plants, our lives on this planet would not be possible. We need plants to survive. So, you know, as you're breathing fresh air today, you can thank plants for having air to breathe to keep us alive. So besides all the things that they give us, what makes plants so special? What makes them different from other types of living things? Before we do that, we have to talk about how do living things get their energy. So you guys know that the food we eat becomes our energy, right? Our food has energy in it, and if we never ate anything, then we wouldn't have any energy. So our energy comes from the food that we eat. And some organisms, some living things like humans, okay, we're all humans. Some living things like humans are omnivores. Omnivores mean we eat different things. As human omnivores, we get our energy from eating lots of different types of foods, including plants like our fruits, our vegetables, and our greens, and animal products such as meat, milk, and eggs. So humans are omnivores because we eat plants and things from animals. Some organisms or some living, when I say organisms, that just means the same thing as living thing, right? Alive things. Some organisms like cows are herbivores, which means they only eat plants and they get their energy from eating plants. I actually forgot a group here. Some organisms like a tiger are carnivores, which means they only eat meat or other animals. All right, so we have so far omnivores, which means you eat plants and things from animals. We have herbivores, which means you only eat plants. And we have carnivores, which means you only eat meat or things from animals. And then we have organisms called detritivores. And that means they get their energy from feeding on dead things. So like fungus, yeah? Fungus that's growing in the forest on a dead log is a detritivore. But I haven't said what plants are yet. So how do plants get their energy? Plants are different. They don't get their energy from eating anything. Do plants eat anything? Do plants sit down and have breakfast? So plants are different. They get their energy from the sun instead of eating another living thing. So plants are, this is our biggest science word yet. Plants are photoautotrophs, which is a complicated way to say they make their own food with energy from the sun. So that's what makes plants so special. They don't have to eat anything to get energy. They can make their own energy from the sunlight. All right, I've got a little YouTube video about different types of plants. Let's watch a video.
Hello friends, welcome to a new Happy Learning video. Today we're going to learn about the importance of plants, their main characteristics and also their classification. Presenting the plant kingdom. You already know that plants can't move from one place to another. As you can see, the great majority are held to the ground by roots. But they fulfill the vital functions of all living things. They are born, they grow, they interact, reproduce, and die. As you can see in these images, there are many types of plants. But do you know how many types there are? Well, according to scientists, there are approximately 9 million different species. Some are gigantic like this tree, capable of producing shade for 100 people at the same time. Others are tiny, like this minuscule flower. But although they may be different, they all have something in common. They are capable of making their own food. Plants don't feed off other living creatures like animals do. But they make their own food thanks to photosynthesis, process that transforms sunlight and inorganic matter in their surrounding into food. Photosynthesis is super important for plants but for all living things too, because in that process they release oxygen into the world. And without oxygen, none of us would be here today watching this video. Are plants important or what? Plants were one of the first forms of life that appeared on Earth, thanks to their capacity not to depend on other living creatures to survive. Their most predominant colour is green, and this colour is called chlorophyll, an essential substance to perform photosynthesis. Plant classification. As we said, there are many types of plants, and we can classify them in 4 large groups to get to know them better. Algae, mosses, ferns, and phanerogams. Algae don't have roots, stems, or leaves. They live in water, both rivers and seas, and they are the simplest plants. Mosses are also very simple plants. They live on solid ground but need a lot of humidity. They don't have roots to absorb water because they live in very humid and bleak places. Ferns are higher plants, and their body is divided into roots, which is where they absorb water from the soil, stem, which is where the water circulates, and leaves that grow upwards from the stem. Ferns also live in humid places. Phanerogams, despite their name, are the most common plants because they reproduce through their flowers. They are higher plants, and their bodies are divided into roots, stems, and leaves. Trees are an example that belongs to this group. Well, now we know a bit more about plants and their importance towards all other living things. So you know that we need to take care of them and respect them.
So there are lots of different types of plants in the world. And just for a fun little fact, so you guys know that plants make the oxygen that we need to breathe, right? I think the number is about 70% or so of the oxygen that we get to breathe, and the oxygen in our atmosphere is not made by plants on land, but made by algae and phytoplankton in the ocean. People like to say that the rainforest is like the lungs of the earth because it breathes out oxygen, but most of our oxygen actually comes from our oceans. So they talked about it a little bit in the video, but let's talk a little bit more about how plants make their own food. This picture that I have here is under a microscope. Those are cells of a plant. So all living things are made of cells, and these are cells of a plant. So in these cells, in the green parts of plants, they have this pigment or this color called chlorophyll. And it is what color?
Green.
It's green, that's right. So chlorophyll is what gives plants their green color, and it's the pigment that they use to catch the sun's light. So now you know, that's why plants are green. They're green because they use that green color to catch the sun's energy, and they use that energy from the sun to take particles from the air and particles from water, and they turn that into sugars. So they make sugars out of water and air with the sun's light. I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty cool. So different parts of plants and their purposes. At the beginning of class, we talked a little bit about the different parts of plants. The main purpose of the leaves on our plants is to catch that sunlight energy and make sugars for the rest of the plant so that the plant can have energy. So our flowers are what help the plant make new plants. They make baby plants. So without flowers, we wouldn't have baby plants, and plants would get old and they would die, and then we wouldn't have any more plants. So it's important that our flowers help our plants reproduce. And then the stem of the plant As you saw in that last video, the stem is the part that stands up nice and straight. And stems can look really different, right? In a tree, a stem can be a tree trunk this big around, and it's kind of like tough and woody. But a stem for a little flower may be really, really, really thin. But they all serve the same purpose. They hold those leaves and flowers up, and they move water and nutrients through the plant. That's kind of like the blood vessels of the plant. And then the fruits hold the seeds from the plant and help them spread out sometimes. So for example, if I eat a tomato and the tomato goes through my system and then the seeds come out the other end in a completely different place, then that fruit helped the seeds spread out. Lots of plants use that mechanism to help their seeds get far away from the parent plant, especially with wildlife. And then lastly, roots, which are the part of the plant we don't usually see because they are underground. They soak up the nutrients and the water from the soil for the rest of the plant. So all these parts are different and they have different purposes, but plants need all those parts to survive. So in the middle of the picture here, we have a cross section, which means it's been cut in half. So imagine this was a whole flower and we cut it in half, and now we're just looking at half of it, a cross section of a flower. So of course we see, what is this big yellow part? So those are the petals of the flower, and the petals help show pollinators, here I am, here I am. So bees will see the flower and come pollinate the flower. And then inside the flower, we have male parts and we have female parts. Where this circle is, that is where all the ovules or the egg of the flowers are. So that is the female part of the flower. This whole thing that I'm outlining with my mouse, that is called the pistil. And that is the whole female structure of the flower. And then these little guys on the sides with these little yellow tips on them, those are called the stamen and the anther. So we have pistil and we have stamen. Pistil is the female part, stamen is the male part. So what will happen when a pollinator comes to visit this flower is that the pollinator will pick up some pollen, which is the male part. It'll pick up the pollen from one of these anthers, and that pollen will stick to the, let's just use a bumblebee for an example. That pollen's going to stick to the bumblebee, and then it's going to go visit another flower. And when it lands in that other flower, some of that pollen might stick right here to the end of the pistil called the stigma. And then the really cool part, that piece of pollen, it's microscopic, it's so tiny you can't even see it. That piece of pollen will travel down the style of the pistil, and it will fertilize some of these ovules here. And then guess what we get when we have a fertilized ovule?
Seeds.
Flowers make seeds, that's right. So when that pollen fertilizes one of these ovules, that could possibly turn into seeds. What is in a seed? For example, this picture right here, this is a bean. Did you guys know beans are seeds?
Yes.
Coffee beans?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Just like a regular old kidney bean that you put in chili, those are seeds. Those are seeds from the bean plant. So this picture shows the inside of a bean that has been cut open, and inside this seed, we have the hole where the water gets into the seed when it's time for the seed to sprout. We have the radicle, which is the plant's root inside the seed. And then we have the cotyledon, which just means seed leaf. So all that to say, when you put this bean seed in water and put it in soil, when it sprouts, the cotyledons, or those seed leaves, will be the first leaves that come out of the seed when the plant sprouts. So the first leaves that you see actually came out of the seed itself. They've just been hanging out in that seed. And then when the seed sprouts, they wake up and we see them. And then the radicle is the root of the baby plant. So that radicle pops out and finds the soil and grows down, and the leaf pops out and grows upwards. All right, so I've got a couple more little videos for us to watch, and these are just videos of seeds sprouting, so you guys can see it in action. So here we've got a bean seed that's going to sprout, just like we saw in that diagram. So what we're seeing right now, first popping out of that seed, is the radicle, or the little baby root coming out of the seed. And of course, this is sped up. We're on day 4 of the seed sprouting now. So it's not like this is happening in real time. This is like a fast forward of a seed. We have more roots sprouting out from the side. We have the stem popping out of the seed. And then finally, the seed pops out of the ground. Okay, so what we're seeing first down here, those little nubs, those are the cotyledons, or the seed leaves. So those were actually inside the seed, they're not true leaves. And then up here, we have the first true leaves. So we're on day 9 of this thing sprouting. Now let's keep watching. So we're seeing more leaves sprouting here, and the plant's getting taller, taller, taller. I bet you guys didn't realize plants moved around so much on their own, huh?
No.
Like I said, though, this is like a fast forward, so they don't move this fast, but they do move. They kind of look crazy waving all around. They do that looking for where the light is the brightest. They're trying to reach the brightest light. Now we're seeing the roots grow. All right, so that was one bean plant that we saw 25 days of. Now let's look at another video that has lots of different types of plants sprouting.
Was that a flat? Was that a
I don't wear comfortable
coffee
shoes.
bean?
I refuse to
No,
wear
that was
comfortable
like a
shoes,
kidney
and you
bean,
shouldn't
like
wear
a bean that
comfortable
you put in
shoes.
your chili.
Okay, thank you, Melly. I didn't.
So we've got oats here sprouting. And oats look like grass when they sprout. They're in the grass family. See that one coil out of its seed? That looks like kind of a tomato. I think that's a tomato seed sprouting. Looks like here we've got some beans. another oat. So, as part of Plantapalooza in the coming weeks, we are gonna start some seeds together that we're gonna follow on Zoom. So we have to decide what kind of seeds we're gonna start. I want us to think of some different types of seeds that we can start that would help us see all the different parts of a plant. All right, so do you guys want me to read out to you some things that I have, and then if something sounds good, shout it out and let me know?
Yes.
Broccoli is my favorite.
What is?
Broccoli.
Broccoli. I might have some broccoli seed. Let's start a broccoli.
Broccoli seeds. Oh my god.
We can start some broccoli. Any other favorites that you guys want to see started?
Yes.
What's your favorite, Michael? What's your favorite plant?
Peas.
Peas. That's a good one. We can start some peas.
I know, I got one.
Go ahead, JK.
Green beans?
I'm gonna say peas and beans is in the same type of family.
Oh, yeah.
So we already have a pea or a bean. Let's choose something different. Do you guys want to choose a type of flower to start?
Sunflowers. Do they
Let's
come back
start a
every
sunflower.
year?
No, they don't. They just last 1 year. But we can start a sunflower seed. So far we have broccoli, we have peas or beans, and we have a sunflower. Let's think of another different type of something that we could start. What's another type of plant we could start? I'm looking through my seed packs here to see what I've got. Let's plant some dill because that has funky looking leaves.
Dill.
Let's plant some dill. What's the dill? Kevin, what did you say a second ago? What seed did you want to start?
Watermelon.
I think that's a good idea. We don't have anything from the cucurbit family yet.
Not yet.
Good girl.
Watermelon. There we go. There's our cucurbit.
Watermelon.
And then I want to pick one, guys. Can I pick one?
Yes.
Yes, Mallory.
I want to pick sweet corn. We'll do a sweet corn.
Sweet corn. Sweet corn.
So now we have 6 different types of seeds that we're going to start. We're going to start broccoli, peas or beans, sunflower, dill, watermelon, and corn. All right, team. So what's going to happen? I'm probably going to go ahead and start some of these seeds so that next week we can see some sprouts. How about that?
Okay.
So you guys have to make sure to tune in next week for All Things Farm so that we can see our seeds. And then the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that, because I'm going to keep all these little plants for us to watch. Okay, good. I'll see you guys Wednesday at 1 o'clock for All Things Farm. Okay, team, thanks for logging in. I will see you guys next week.